Europe is about to spend hundreds of billions on its military. The dream is to spark an economic boom, much like America experienced after World War II. But this isn't the golden opportunity many believe it is. It's a gamble with poor odds. And over the next few minutes, I will explain why this strategy is likely to fail in Europe and what that means for public services and your own finances. Hi everyone, I'm George Economo, the economist. So the idea is called Military Keynesianism. It's a policy where a government dramatically increases defense spending to stimulate the economy. The classic example is the United States in the mid-20th century, where massive military spending is often credited with pulling the US out of the Great Depression. I analyzed the effects of this policy and its consequences on the USA in the previous video, which you will find somewhere here. Now, facing new geopolitical threats, European leaders are looking at this model. They see the continent's rearmament with spending projected to hit 381 billion euros in 2025, not just as a security measure, but as an economic silver bullet. The promise seems to be a little bit simple. Invest in tanks and jets, and you will get factories humming and GDP climbing. But what if the conditions that made it work for America 8 years ago no longer exist? We are going to break down the 3 reasons why copying that strategy is a recipe for economic disappointment in the 21st century Europe. Now, before I continue, take a moment and subscribe to my channel. It will help me deliver more content to you and other curious minds like you. So, the biggest reason this will likely fail is the modern Europe is fundamentally different from post-war America. First, political and industrial unity. When the United States ramped up military spending, it was one country with a single federal budget and a unified defense industry. President Roosevelt could tell General Motors to build tanks, and it happened. This created enormous economies of scale. Europe, on the other hand, is a collection of 27 different sovereign states, each with its own budget and industrial priorities. The result is significant fragmentation. Instead of one unified European defense market, you have dozens of smaller competing ones. While the EU has a target for 40% of defense procurement to be collaborative by 2030, the current figure remains disappointingly low. This means countries often develop or buy duplicate systems, preventing the cost-saving benefits of mass production. Second reason, there is the issue of financial power. Post-war America had a unique advantage. The US dollar was the world's undisputed reserve currency, allowing the government to run huge deficits. Europe doesn't have this luxury. Most EU countries, particularly those in the Eurozone, are bound by strict rules on debt and deficits. They cannot just turn on the printing presses. The hundreds of billions for defense have to come from somewhere else. Either higher taxes or deep cuts to other public services. They are forced into a direct guns versus butter trade-off that post-war America could largely avoid. And this brings us to the second fatal flaw, the enormous opportunity cost. Every euro spent on a new fighter jet is a euro that cannot be spent on building a hospital or upgrading a rail network. And the evidence is clear. When it comes to creating jobs, military spending is one of the least effective ways for a government to spend money. Studies have consistently shown that investments in other sectors deliver a much higher return. For example, one analysis found that investing 1 billion euros in healthcare or education creates significantly more jobs, in some cases more than double than investing that same billion in the arms industry. The reason is simple. Building hospitals and schools is labor-intensive, and uses a wide range of local suppliers. In contrast, modern defense spending is incredibly capital-intensive and high-tech. The billions flow to a small number of highly specialized engineers and a few major defense corporations. This isn't a hypothetical trade-off, it's already happening. As nations scramble to meet NATO spending targets, social and environmental goals are being pushed aside. The investment gap to meet the EU's own green and social goals is estimated to be hundreds of billions of euros per year. That staggering sum is now in direct competition with ballooning defense budgets. For the average citizen, the consequences are tangible. Money that could have reduced hospital waiting times is instead being funneled into complex weapon systems. The third reason this strategy is flawed is that today's military spending creates a long-term economic drag with limited productive value and significant economic leakage. A huge portion of modern defense's budgets goes into R&D for complex, low-volume systems like next-generation fighter jets. The famous spillover effects into the civilian economy are often overstated and can take decades to appear. Spending billions on a hypersonic missile doesn't directly lead to better consumer goods. Military assets, by their nature, are designed for destruction or deterrence. They don't produce goods or services that make the wider economy more productive. They sit in silos and require constant, expensive maintenance. Even more damaging is the problem of economic leakage. When America built its arsenal in the 1940s, it built it in America. Today, a European fighter jet is often assembled with critical components sourced from outside the EU. In the period after the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, a huge portion of military equipment procured by EU member states, some reports suggest nearly 80%, came from non-EU countries, especially the United States. This means a large slice of European taxpayer money immediately leaves the continent, severely diluting the stimulus. So what happens if Europe continues down this path? The picture isn't one of prosperity, but of mounting pressure. First, a structural hit to public services. Faced with fiscal rules and the immense cost of rearmament, governments may be forced into a prolonged era of austerity for everything except the military. This could mean rationed healthcare, underfunded education, and delayed climate action, while taxes rise to cover the bill. Second, the creation of a powerful European military-industrial complex, or lobbying, to say it in other words. In his farewell address, President Eisenhower famously warned of the unwarranted influence of the partnership between the military and arms manufacturers. As Europe pours hundreds of billions into this sector, it risks entrenching a lobby whose profits depend on sustained tension. And finally, this path could deepen divisions within the EU. The industrial benefits of this spending won't be shared equally. Larger countries with established defense giants like Germany and France will likely capture the lion's share of the contracts, while smaller member states bear the fiscal burden without seeing the same industrial returns. The idea that Europe can spend its way to prosperity by building a bigger military is a comforting illusion, but a dangerous one. It ignores the fundamental differences between Europe today and America 80 years ago. We have seen the three core reasons why this is a trap. Number one, Europe lacks the unified political and financial structure that made it work for the US. Number two, the opportunity cost is immense, diverting funds from sectors like healthcare and green energy that create far more jobs. And number three, this spending itself becomes a long-term economic drag. with massive financial leakage outside the EU. Pursuing this path won't lead to an economic renaissance. It risks a future of strained public services, higher taxes, and an economy weighed down by unproductive debt. The question for Europe isn't whether to ensure its security, but how to do so without falling into this economic trap. So, what should Europe be investing in instead to truly boost its economy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See you all in the next video. Bye bye.